The 8 things you need to know before moving to the Columbia, Lexington, and Lake Murray area right here in South Carolina. In this video, I'm going to hit the different areas of town, school districts, taxes, the weather, workplaces, Lake Murray, and one of the biggest reasons I hear why people choose not to move to the area. So you'll want to stick around for this. That's right. Back in 2015, can't believe it's already been almost 10 years, my wife and I packed our bags in Southern California and relocated to Columbia, South Carolina, essentially blind. There were no videos like this. The websites were just sales pitches. We literally drove out for a few days to check it out and decided to move. We took the risk and thankfully it worked out. But now I'm here to tell you from my personal experience the things you need to know before you make that leap. And to be 100% honest, there are so many reasons why people are choosing to move here to South Carolina, specifically right here in the Midlands of South Carolina, the Columbia, Lexington, and Lake Murray area. Whether it is the weather, the taxes, the cost of living, being close to some of those favorite vacation spots, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Hilton Head, and there's some negatives that you might not have been aware of. And that's why it's important that I hit these 8 things that you should know about before you consider moving here. And just for clarification, this isn't an entire list of bad things per se, but I do have my brand new 2024 version of the things they don't tell you coming soon. So you'll want to subscribe to not miss that. But let's start off with the area. So a lot of people, when they first decide, hey, I want to move to the Midlands of South Carolina, it's mostly based on a few videos and, some beautiful home listings of beautiful southern homes for a great price. They really can't pinpoint exactly where they want to live in the Midlands, right? Whether you're looking at Lexington, Chapin, Irmo, Columbia, Blythewood, or Lake Murray, they all have different feels and different vibes, and it's truly such a personal choice of which going to click best with you. Whether you are looking for Columbia, some of those older established neighborhoods like Shandon, Rosewood, and so many more, being walking distance to the bars, restaurants, the college, being close to the Bull Street district where you can go watch Fireflies baseball games, and so much more. Or you're looking for Lexington, a growing suburb with a mix of established neighborhoods and new construction developments popping up regularly. Lexington County was considered the fastest growing county in the Midlands of South Carolina, and Lexington itself has been ranked as a number 2 best area to live in South Carolina, right behind Greenville, according to USA Today. Or maybe you're considering the northeast part of Columbia, seeking out that more urban setting with master plan communities like Lake Carolina with its private lake, Wood Creek Farms and Wildwood Country Club neighborhoods, the Summit, and so many more. Or you're considering Blythewood, home of the recently announced Scout Plan. Neighborhoods such as Ashley Oaks, the exclusive gated golf course neighborhood of Cobblestone Park, new Pulte new construction neighborhoods, and so many more. Or you're looking at somewhere like Irmo, those older established neighborhoods, no HOA, a little bit more space, but close to major shopping and the one and only Costco in our area. Or you want to venture out to Chapin, that small town feel, 2-lane roads winding around the lake. Or maybe you're looking for more rural living. Elgin, Lugoff, Hopkins, Gaston, Pillion, Gilbert, and so many more where you can find a home on land and acreage, no HOAs, and truly living off the grid. Or maybe you are hoping to live on Lake Murray. Live that lake life where you can have your own dock that you can walk out for a day of boating, fishing, skiing, you name it. It's a 50,000 acre play place that has public access, restaurants, and so much more to do on it. In the end, again, it's such a diverse area with so many different options and opportunities. For instance, to give you an idea, our average price sits right around $330,000, but we have homes listed from around $50,000. Now, granted, most of them aren't livable at that price, up to 736 acres for just over $17 million. Now, granted, even with that one, the most expensive listing is just over $3.5 million. But again, as you can see, we have options for just about everybody. And I personally can't tell you which area is going to fit you best, as we each have different perspectives of what we like and what we don't like. But with that said, don't hesitate to reach out, as I've created a ton of guides to help you determine which area fits your best based on your wants and need, including some self-guided tours that I created so you can explore the area and not just feel like you're driving around in circles when you first come down to visit. And for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Brandon. My team of local real estate agents have been truly helping people relocate from all over the country. So don't hesitate to reach out. That way you don't have to go at this alone. And stick around, as in the end, you'll want to hear the biggest complaint I see online about our area. But with that said, as we kind of roll into the next one, which is school districts, I have to let you know, in the state of South Carolina, as real estate agents, we're not allowed to give you personal opinion, because even though I may think this is a great neighborhood, you may hate the neighborhood. And I've heard that from clients when I take them into my own neighborhood. Remember, life is all about perspective. I grew up in California and worked as an EMT on the streets of Los Angeles. So my perspective of good versus bad is going to be entirely different than yours. Either way, we're allowed to lean on material facts. Now, with that said, I can give you resources such as crime trackers and school rating trackers. Or hey, you can actually go watch Live PD, as they do cover one of our local counties here in the Midlands. And I guess now it's called On Patrol Live now. Either way, obviously you can make your best decision based on your research. So with that said, you can look at the South Carolina school grading system when it comes to schools, or there's websites like niche.com, greatschools.org that kind of give you their rating scales. And now again, this is based off of their rating system. So you need to look at it specifically, as it breaks down a lot of information. The ratio of students to teachers, graduation rates, extracurricular activities, and all different information. And keep in mind, some of these are still based on a lot of reviews, which can be very biased too. But either way, when you look at the top school districts in South Carolina, on niche.com specifically, number 2 in the state is Lexington Richland School District 5, which is going to be that Irmo Chapin area. Number 4 in the entire state is Lexington School District 1 in Lexington. And also they rank River Bluff High School, Lexington High School, Blythewood High School, Dutch Fork High School, Dreher High School, and Chapin High School in the top 25 high schools in the entire state. Many of these landing in the top 10% of the entire country. Again, you need to look at those ratings and see how they grade. And one more reason we can't lean on these, because again, is it fact, is to be 100% honest, ever since I've been in real estate, I've watched this list fluctuate of which high school was ranked better than another and which district was ranked better than another. So keep in mind, many of these sites are still opinion, and that's why we strongly suggest you do the best research you can diving into their criteria. I've honestly had clients that have, even when they visited the area, gone to the schools, met with the principal, and asked them the questions they needed to ask and get answered. Again, because to be 100% honest, when you talk to some of the teachers, they have different perspective than a lot of these grading systems do. But anyways, hopefully that gives you a good starting point if this is important to you. The job market. So what are the top places to work in the area if you don't already have a job here? Now, I know a lot of you work from home or retired, but keep in mind the economy is important when it comes to the area you live and its stability. So the top employer in the area, based on volume we're talking about, is going to be the state of South Carolina. So obviously state employees, with having the state capital here, as well as headquarters for DHEC, SLED, and so many other state agencies. Next is going to be Prisma Health, which is a local medical group that has multiple hospitals in the area, followed by Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, who has home base over in Columbia. Next is Lexington Medical Center, which is another medical facility in the area, wrapping up with the University of South Carolina. To expand on this further, as this is something a lot of people have asked me about, the makeup of our job market. Going through 2023, healthcare and social assistance made up about 14% of the job market. As I mentioned, with Blue Cross Blue Shield, Prisma Health, and Lexington Medical Center. Retail trade making up 12%, with Walmart topping the list, followed by Amazon Distribution Centers, Samsung, and UPS. Manufacturing making up 10%, topping the list are Nephron Pharmaceuticals, Michelin Tires, Train, Samsung, Kraft Heinz, and Westinghouse Electric Company. Making up 9%, accommodation and food service. Obviously, with it being the state capital and a college town, the area brings in nearly 16 million people a year visiting, driving hotels, restaurants, and more. Add to that, you do have food and beverage distributors such as DAC Americans, Anthony Brewing, who distributes My Card Lemonade and White Claw, as well as Devereaux Inc. Public administration makes up 8%. As mentioned, with the state capital here, creating tons of jobs with state agencies such as SC Department of Corrections, SC Department of Social Services, South Carolina Education Department, and so many more. Outside of this, new industries, as this has been a big thing for us. I've talked about a lot in other videos how historically places like Greenville just happen to get a lot more jobs and diversity of industries, which help their area grow. but we've now seen that transition to our area. Of course, the largest announcement, as I've mentioned many times before, Scout Motors coming to the area. They say this alone will bring 4,000 jobs to the area, consisting not only of the employees for Scout, but all the ancillary jobs created with the growth because of this plan. This plan is well underway, and I've already spoken to and helped multiple people relocate right here to the Midlands of South Carolina that are currently working at Scout Motors. Other jobs that came to the area recently were Service Solutions, they're an electrical vehicle battery material facility, F in America, Mark Anthony Brewing, as I mentioned before, and many more. And one more interesting fact that a lot of people didn't know until they made the announcements of their relocation of their facility. Many times this will get people's eyes to light up, but we do have a brand new FBI facility right here in Lexington after its relocation from the Irmo area. Now, of course, many people get wide-eyed when you tell them the FBI is here and they wonder, why do you have the FBI so close? Now, most people that work for three-letter agencies are pretty tight-lipped, but the more I've talked to them, they'll tell you most cities have a three-letter agency in the area. It's just not commonly advertised, and there's no signage that says the three-letter agency on the building. I know many didn't know about the FBI buildings in Irmo and still today don't know where they actually were. Military bases and the college. As mentioned when I was talking about workplaces, one of the biggest things that draws people here is the military base and the college. So when I first started working in real estate, prior to the pandemic boom, a ton of the clients we were speaking with that were relocating were coming here because of Fort Jackson or the University of South Carolina. Obviously, this is still a prominent reason that a lot of people move to the area. But as we became one of the top states to relocate to, that influx to the area came from many other reasons. But keep it on topic. Let's start with the military. I talked to a ton of people that are now retired military that were once stationed at Fort Jackson or one of the many other military bases here in South Carolina. And they're ready to come back to retire or start their new chapter of life back home, especially considering the tax benefits that exist for disabled vets. And you have the Dorn VA Hospital right here in Columbia. And for those not familiar, so Fort Jackson is right here in the heart of Columbia. It is the U.S. Army's main production center for basic combat training. They say that installation trains roughly 50% of all soldiers and more than 60% of women entering the Army each year. You also have McIntyre Joint National Guard Base in Hopkins and Shaw Air Force Base out in Sumter. But a lot of people still choose to live right here in the Midlands of South Carolina when stationed in the area. With that said, don't be surprised when you see military jets flying overhead in the area. As with all these bases, they train flying missions in and around the area, and you'll hear that sound of freedom. As far as the University of South Carolina, they say they have an enrollment of over 36,000 students and is the largest university in the state and boasts the #1 ranking for international business, as well as they have their School of Law and School of Medicine with its recent announcement of its brand new facility being relocated to the Bull Street district. Now, as a part of the SEC, they remain competitive and entertaining with sports. Recently, you may have heard under current head coach Dawn Staley, the women's Gamecocks basketball team have been one of the top programs in the country, winning the NCAA championship in 2017, 2022, and 2024. And I've been asked, is it really that big of a college town? Now, Livability.com currently ranks Columbia, South Carolina as #8 top college towns in America. So the short answer is, yeah, it is. Now, I found that being such a large and diverse downtown, you can easily find restaurants and shopping in places like the Main Street District that don't quite feel like every bar is a college bar. But, head over to 5 Points and you'll see plenty of college-themed bars, steps from that school housing. But in the end, if you've never been exposed to SEC sports, people are serious about it. And don't be surprised if they take offense if you try and laugh off their Gamecocks. Don't forget, we still have the thing that brings more comments to my YouTube page than any other coming up, but we gotta talk about weather, as many of you ask me about this. Now, obviously, weather is very relative to where you're coming from. I personally came from out west, so the biggest difference for me is the dry heat versus the humidity, which the best way I can explain is opening the dryer when there's wet clothes in it versus opening the oven when it's set to 450. Of course, add on the possibility of hurricanes and tornadoes. Now, if you watch my video about the 6 reasons people chose not to live here, I kind of go over the chances and the history of hurricanes in the area. So make sure to watch that if that's a fear you have. But let's talk about overall weather. It is very humid in the summer, don't get me wrong, with temperatures averaging the 90s and pushing up to the 100s some days. And during the winter, we look at an average of 56 high and 36 low, with some days pushing into the 20s and teens. Now, as far as snow, I can tell you my personal experience, because they say we average about 1 inch per year. We moved here back in 2015, and I've seen snow, but it's only stuck once since we've been here. And of course, when it happened, the schools closed, most jobs closed, and everybody stocked up on their bread, milk, and their eggs for whatever reason. But by the end of the next day, the sun was shining, the snow was gone, and everyone was back to normal business. I mean, I've had clients from up north, and many times there's a possibility of snow, and they're taken back at the fact that everything is closing down for a possibility of a dusting. Safe to say we're not prepared for it. So in the end, is there a possibility of snow? Absolutely. We just don't see it that often, so you can leave your snow shovels at home. Now, rain, we definitely do see a lot. On average, year-round, about 25 to 30% chance of rain. And then come July and August, that picks up to about 50% chance of rain, with an average accumulation of 46 inches of rain, which is above the national average of 38 inches. Obviously, this was a big difference for me coming from the drought-ridden state of California. So again, all very relative to where you're coming from, and keep in mind that does create floodplains in certain areas, so you want to keep that in the back of your mind. And wrapping up with the humidity, because people say, how bad is it really? I always tell people it really depends on your job. I mean, if you got to be out there digging ditches or putting a roof up, it's gonna stink. But if you work in an office all the time, then hey, you're only going out there for a little bit. I know if I try and do gardening or yard work or any construction projects at home on the weekend, if I don't start early in the morning, I'm telling you, I've never poured so much sweat in my life. And so yes, it is very humid. Like I said, this is all gonna be relative to where you're coming from and what you do for a living, of how exposed you're gonna be to it. Taxes, the fun part that nobody wants to talk about. And no, this isn't the biggest fuss online, but part of it does get brought up a lot, and we'll tackle that in just a minute. Anyways, we got to talk about taxes because, well, they're taxes and the government wants their money. But hey, one of the reasons you may be moving here is because you like the taxes. So let's talk about it. First, let's talk property taxes. Now, this could get very confusing because we use what is called a mill rate. If you're not familiar with mill rates, it's government math, which just means it's a more complicated way to figure out how much money you owe. So if you hear about a 4% rate and a 6% rate, don't get alarmed because the mill rate just brings it down either way. On average in the state, it's about 0.6% of your assessed property value. Now here locally, it is about 0.61% in Lexington County and about 0.87% in Richland County, which I'll put a tax estimated below if you want to see how much your taxes may be on your house. Now granted, I do tell people they are going to reassess when you buy a new house, so you can't be dependent on whatever that person was paying before, because they do reassess every couple years, but there's a cap on it, so a lot of people are paying a lot less taxes than what you may purchase the house for. Either way, with that said, I do want to warn you because a lot of people will look online and see some people's taxes are just ridiculously high. They wonder why that is, or if that area just has excessively high taxes. So here in South Carolina, they give you a huge discount for being your primary residence. They encourage people to buy homes. So those rates I was talking about are for primary residence. Now, if it is not your primary residence, it's a rental, it's your vacation home, your second home, whatever you want to call it, that number is going to be a whole lot higher. I mean, in some areas, I'm literally talking about 4 to 5 times higher than your primary residence rate. So again, that's why you want to check out this tax estimator and see what your taxes are going to be. This is where we talk about primary residence tax rate. Not the same as homestead. Homestead is for 65, disabled, blind. Primary residence is where you're going to switch to that prior tax rate I talked about versus that 4 to 5 times higher amount. Either way, with taxes, there's one more thing I have to bring up because this always creates such a heated debate online about this. Now again, this is perspective comes in because this was not new to me, but we do pay vehicle property taxes every single year here in the state of South Carolina. This is going to be on your cars, RVs, boats, you name it. Again, in California, we had excessive DMV fees that mimic what we pay in property taxes here. But I've had numerous clients that were freaked out when they were told they had to pay property taxes every year on their vehicle. Doesn't matter if the car is paid off, this is property taxes just like your house, not sales tax. Again, as far as how much, I'll drop an estimator below. And as I've said many times, this is based on their fair market value of the vehicle. Now, all my vehicles, their fair market value was significantly less than Kelley Blue Book trade-in value, but of course, I can't promise that for everybody. And keep in mind, as I talked about before, there are a lot of incentives and exemptions for disabled vets. So if that's you, you'll want to talk to the county about what options you may have and what you can save on, because if you're 100% disabled, per the state of SC, a disabled veteran is entitled to exemption on his or her legal residence in up to 1 acre of land, and exemption from taxes on no more than 2 vehicles owned or leased by the disabled veteran. So again, plenty of tax benefits for disabled veterans. Let's go dive into Lake Murray. Not literally, I gotta dive into the details for you, but it is one of the big attractions of why a lot of people say they want to come here. I mean, it's a 50,000 acre recreation play place. And there are multiple public entrances to get on the lake. So whether you plan on living on the lake or you just want to head out boating, fishing, floating, paddleboarding, you'll have access. And if you want to learn more about those areas specifically, I made an entire video about Lake Murray neighborhoods, to check that out. But I want to give you the basics of the cost of living so you can decide if lake living is within your budget. And so the way I broke this down to give you an idea of the cost is the 4 major counties and regions on Lake Murray. Then I broke down to the average price and range of closings over the past 6 months to give you an idea. So we get kicked off with Saluda County. So in the Saluda County part of Lake Murray, on the lake, the average home sold for $581,000. Those homes range from $300,000 up to $1.25 million. Now we roll over to Newberry County. The average home sold at $774,000. That ranged from $200,000 to $1.6 million. And to give you an idea, I'll be doing a future drive-through of these more rural areas of Lake Murray because I've had more and more people ask about them. Either way, rolling into the more populated areas, we kick off with Chapin and Irmo. Their average came in at $1,041,287. Pricing ranging from $395,000 up to $3 million. Now we roll over to the Lexington side of Lake Murray. Their average came in at $958,340, from $240,000 to $2,805,000. And before you get excited about that $240 and some of the other lower priced one, that one in Lexington, to give you an idea, was a 1995 single wide 3-bedroom, 1-bath mobile home that has not been updated. So hope that puts things into perspective, and keep an eye on remembering when I tell people the average price is for the average home. So if you're looking for something that's bigger, more upgraded, probably not going to be the average price, probably going to be higher, just to put into perspective. So one of the biggest things to keep in mind when you're trying to decide where to live is traffic and the drivers. That's right. This is probably one of the biggest complaints I hear from people of why they're turned off from this area. But let's dive into this to give you the facts. First, let's talk about something called Malfunction Junction. A quick search online will show you essentially where we have a section of interstates that all come together, 20, 26, and 126. And unfortunately, during rush hour, creates a lot of traffic. Now, the good thing is the state has come up with a master plan how to alleviate all that traffic and that construction. It's well underway if you've driven to the area. However, as many of you know, that construction sometimes makes traffic worse until they finish, and it's going to be quite a few years before they're done. So again, I'm going to drop a link below to the plan so you can kind of see it, so you can make sure this isn't going to become an issue and make that short travel to work a lot longer. And before we dive into the bigger issue with traffic, I want to talk about, yes, the drivers do suck. Everybody online that says it, you're right. South Carolina ranked 8th among states with the most incidents per driver. Hence, we have high car insurance rates. And some of you on my driving videos have seen where people have run red lights right in front of me just to get ahead. Either way, continue on. I have honestly had a lot of people tell me they didn't end up liking the area because of this one thing. When you come to visit, you'll notice a lot of the infrastructure wasn't prepared for the growth. And a lot of times, especially when school lets out, you'll find yourself stuck in quite a bit of traffic. These are important things that I know a lot of people mention to me when they come and visit the area. You will constantly hear people complain about this in local Facebook groups. And if you're in some of them, you've probably had someone tell you that we're full and you need to stay where you are. I get it. It's frustrating to deal with traffic. Now, of course, they're trying to mitigate it, which I'm glad, but adding a few roundabouts isn't doing it. And I feel like they're constantly chasing their tails because, again, they weren't prepared for all these people to move to the area. I mean, being that we're ranked as one of the top relocation states, when does it slow down, the growth? Either way, I feel like it's only gonna get worse before it gets better, if I'm being 100% honest. Local county council fight over how to control the growth, and many scream that they want the developers to leave. But then you just run into issues of urban sprawl that just create more and more traffic. Keep in mind, this is the suburbs, and the suburbs are built different than rural small town America. This is not rural small town America anymore. Again, this is why I say buying sight unseen when you have never been here is a major risk. So make sure to reach out to us, because my goal is to educate you, help you make the best decision for you and your family. Look, while I know my job is real estate agent and I only get paid if I sell houses, that's right, this YouTube stuff doesn't pay very well. I've always said, I'm not here to convince you just to sell a home to collect a commission check. My goal is to educate you, and in the end, I'd be happy to help you if you make the decision that the Midlands of South Carolina is right for you. And if not, the good news is there's a ton of other states and areas to pick from around this amazing country. And I've made an entire playlist where I break down all these areas I've talked about right here in the Midlands of South Carolina, Lexington, Columbia, and Lake Murray. So you'll want to check out this playlist to learn more details about those specific areas so you can see which one is right for you.